The Handkerchief by Great 78. Chapter 137. Help. Hat. Horcrux. Standing outside on the grounds, waiting for the occupants of the castle to surrender or die, was Voldemort and his army of supporters. And Narcissa. Draco fumbled hurriedly in his pocket and withdrew his coins, thumbing through them to find Narcissa's. The messages from her spiraled one after the other around the coin, growing ever more frantic as he had not responded. Draco realized that, with so many physical duels, plus the fiend fire from earlier, the coin's heat had been undetectable against his leg. Many of the missives had also come in the last several minutes, as he relived the memories left by Snape to Potter. He felt guilty for not answering her, but he did not dare respond to her now. To do so might startle her too much, and she needed to stay focused. Things were about to go from bad to much, much worse. Potter was dead. Voldemort and the snake were alive, and he didn't foresee an end to all of this that didn't end up with some or all of them dead. He wondered briefly how he could find Hermione downstairs and get them both to his mother, so that the three of them could get to an apparition point. He looked out of the window at the menacing group again. Standing near the front of them was Hagrid, holding the lifeless body of Potter, and Draco's heart seized to realize that the great oaf had been captured by Voldemort. He fought a sob that threatened to well up in his throat. Draco sighed deeply. A sigh of total resignation. It had come to this, then. He knew in his heart of hearts that it would never be enough for three of them to escape. His conscience would not allow him to leave the likes of Hagrid, Theo, Blaise, Neville, Ginny, Luna, Violetta, Dean, even fucking Weasley. Damn it all to hell. Was he turning into a sodding Hufflepuff? Or worse, a stupid Gryffindor? The thought caused a harsh bark of laughter to escape his throat instead. Draco wondered for a moment if he was going mental. Now was really not the fucking time for it, he thought. Voldemort's words were echoing against the castle walls, and he refocused. He was killed as he ran away, trying to save himself, whilst you laid down your lives for him. We bring you his body as proof that your hero is gone. The battle is won. You have lost half of your fighters. My Death Eaters outnumber you, and the boy who lived is finished. There must be no more war. Anyone who continues to resist, man, woman, or child, will be slaughtered, as will every member of their family. Draco shivered a bit at this proclamation. Come out of the castle, now. Kneel before me, and you shall be spared. Your parents and children, your brothers and sisters will live and be forgiven, and you will join me in the new world we shall build together. The doors opened below, and people began to trickle, then to stream out of them. Some were limping. Some held bandaged arms, or supported friends as they walked out to face this wizard, and what was likely to be their final moments. Now, the group that lined the forest edge began moving towards the fighters that crowded the steps below Draco. As they drew closer in the pre-dawn light, Draco was able to make out the dark, black snake that rested against Voldemort's robes, a sinister scarf of evil. The sight set Draco on edge all over again. This confirmed it, then. Potter had not, somehow, managed to kill the snake before he died. The castle's defenders had been silent as the dark group approached, but the spell of shock was broken when a scream rent the air. No! It was the guttural wail of disbelief and anguish, a keen of sorrow, that only sounded more frightening once Draco realized who had made it. Professor McGonagall, normally as controlled and steady as a mountain, seemed to crumple below him. Several arms reached for the woman, and Draco's own heart wrenched for her. Bellatrix's braying, maniacal laughter carried across the chasm of empty space between the two sets of fighters, and he felt his teeth clench. Now, more voices joined McGonagall's. Hermione and Ginny screamed, "Harry, no!" Weasley, voice cracking with emotion, echoed them. Their voices acted like a catalyst to the crowd, and more jeers and shouts erupted from the group below, a wall of noise to push back the Death Eaters. "Silence!" shrieked Voldemort's high, cold voice. He raised his wand, and in the pre-dawn light, Draco recognized the knots along the wand's length. The Elder Wand. The words of Trelawney's prophecy came to his mind. "It is his wand that shall prevail." Draco pushed the thought away as a jet of bright red light seemed to disperse above the crowd that stood below him on the castle steps. Voldemort drew back his lips from his teeth, sneering at the group. "It is over! Set him down, Hagrid, at my feet, where he belongs." Hagrid did so, his back bent in defeat, tears glistening in his beard. "You see," called Voldemort, pacing languidly in front of his followers. Draco's eyes scanned the group, and eventually he located his father. He was surprised to see the man looking so agitated and nervous. Lucius's eyes darted amongst the crowd, tilting his head as though to peer around the heads and shoulders of the fighters gathered there. Likewise Narcissa seemed to do the same, a few feet away. With a small gasp, Draco realized that perhaps both of them were looking for him. He drew back from the window, even though he knew from this angle that there was no way that he could be seen. He knew that his mother had been frantic to find him. It was odd to think that Lucius might have been worried as well. But Voldemort was oblivious to this. His attention was entirely upon the bedraggled group of fighters as well, but for a different reason. "Harry Potter is dead! Do you understand, now, deluded ones? He was nothing, ever, but a boy who relied upon others to sacrifice themselves for him." "He beat you!" Weasley called out, and whatever spell that Voldemort had cast to silence the fighters was broken. Their shouts were renewed, strengthened, straining screams that promised vengeance. Voldemort flicked the Elder Wand at the group once more, and the spell resettled, stronger than before. He resumed his diatribe. "He was killed trying to sneak out of the castle grounds, killed whilst trying to save himself." But at these last words there was a sudden discombobulation in the crowd below. Someone had broken away from the group on the steps of the castle, and was rushing headlong towards Voldemort. With a sickening drop in his stomach, Draco recognized Neville Longbottom. Having just healed the man earlier in the Great Hall, Draco was dismayed to see him tearing across the grounds at the Dark Lord, wand brandished in front of him. With a whip-like motion, Neville was slammed to the ground 10 feet away from the evil wizard, his wand flying overhead. Voldemort batted it away and began laughing. "And who is this?" he said quietly, the final letter drawing out into a hiss. "Who has volunteered to demonstrate what happens to those who continue to fight when the battle is lost?" That maniacal laugh again. Bellatrix spoke up. "It is Neville Longbottom, my lord. The boy who has been giving the Carrows so much trouble. The son of the Aurors, remember?" "Ah, yes, I remember," Voldemort answered, looking down appraisingly at Neville. For his part, Neville was pushing himself upright, Then he stood, alone and wandless. His back was straight, his eyes fixed forward, and from the crowd below, Draco heard a soft wail of fear. Looking down, he saw the blonde head of Hannah Abbott. She was wrapped in the arms of an elderly woman in the ugly hat from the corridor outside the room of requirement. Neville's gran, Augusta Longbottom. Draco turned in desperation back to the room behind him, his eyes wide, seeking. Neville needed a weapon strong enough to fight the Elder Wand. His eyes fell upon the portrait of Dumbledore. The painted man was back, seated upon his golden chair, looking at Draco with interest. "Professor Dumbledore, please. I know I'm the last person that should be asking you for anything, but I need help. Neville needs help." Draco pointed out the window and crossed the room to the portrait quickly. "Help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it," Dumbledore intoned, his eyes seeming to twinkle through the brushstrokes of the canvas. "Well, I'm asking. I need it," Draco said urgently. In the grounds below there were cheers and jeers from the crowd. Neville needs the Sword of Gryffindor. Where is it? It was in my bag, but it's gone now." Dumbledore smiled kindly, and also a bit infuriatingly at Draco, who only wished that he would hurry. "You will find the Sword of Gryffindor in its rightful place behind my portrait. Severus and I thought it best to hide it there for safekeeping." Dumbledore nodded encouragingly at him. Once again, Draco gripped the sides of the painting and pulled, and once again nothing happened. His shoulders sagged. From below, he could make out the insane cackle of Bellatrix once again, and he had the flash of a memory. Himself and Neville discussing that very witch in the library during 5th year. "How do I get in?" Draco asked quietly, brokenly. "Well, like any good Slytherin and Gryffindor, Severus and I decided to use a password," replied Dumbledore. "The password is simple. It is the strongest kind of magic." Draco closed his eyes and willed himself to think. Once upon a time, he might have said the strongest, most brutish magic was the dark magic, of the type practiced by Voldemort, Bellatrix, or Grindelwald. Certainly that kind of magic was the type that physically hurt the most. His mind trailed along the spells and charms he had learned in his years at Hogwarts. A Patronus was conjured from happiness. A Bombardier or Defender was cast with the intent to destroy or separate. But strongest type of magic? Somehow, Draco didn't think that any of these was the answer. An image formed in his mind. A pair of copper eyes, a warm smile, a coil of brown hair, and, next to her, the blue eyes of his mother, offering him her wand. The pink hair of Tonks, flipping over her shoulder as she transferred a sleeping baby to his arms. The patched and shabby robes of Remus, borrowed in a moment of need. The thinned line of Severus Snape's mouth, always teaching, always advising. The large hands of Hagrid, offering a stuffed hippogriff as a gift, a reminder of who he was. The arm of Pym held out to apparate him. The medical bag of Ted Tonks, the wands given to Colin and Dean, the shared meal of potatoes and pickles with Andromeda. "It's love," Draco whispered, without opening his eyes. "The strongest kind of magic is love." There was a metallic click, and Draco's eyes flew open to see the hidden space behind the portrait, revealed as the painting swung forward. Inside, the sword gleamed as though lit from within. Draco grabbed it by the hilt. What to do with it now? Snape had given it to Potter and Weasley, under the duress of heroism. But when it appeared to Potter in the Chamber of Secrets, Hermione had said it was inside the sorting hat, sent by Dumbledore. Both times it had been sent by the headmaster in moments of need. There was no current headmaster, but he was in the headmaster's office. Draco supposed he would have to do. His eyes scanned the room and spotted the hat of Godric Gryffindor. He rushed over and snatched it from its shelf. Draco stuffed the sword inside, and despite the fact that the sword was easily twice as long as the hat, somehow, magically, the sword fit. What was more, the hat was as lightweight as it had been when Draco first picked it up. Draco turned towards the window. This was the hard part. Did he just toss it down? Could he float it into Neville's hands? Yet then, just as he decided that floating it was his only option, the hat flew from his grip and sailed out of the window. Draco recovered from his momentary shock and hurried to the window, standing to the side so that he could watch and not be seen. Voldemort now stood in front of Neville, one hand outstretched. "If that is your choice, Longbottom, we revert to the original plan. On your head be it." The Sorting Hat flew into the Dark Lord's outstretched hands. Draco's breath caught. What if Voldemort reached inside and found the sword? But Draco needn't have worried. The sword clearly found Voldemort's bravery and courage lacking, because the hat seemed to look and feel empty to his touch. "There will be no more sorting at Hogwarts School. There will be no more houses. The emblem, shield, and colours of my noble ancestor, Salazar Slytherin, will suffice for everyone. Won't they, Neville Longbottom?" Voldemort pointed his wand at Neville, who was making a valiant effort to control his fear, Draco could tell. Neville's arms and legs snapped to his sides, succumbing to the full body-bind curse. The Dark Lord levitated the hat onto Neville's head. Just as it had done their first night at Hogwarts, the hat slipped down over Neville's eyes. The shouts and screams from the castle's defenders below were rising in volume. Death Eaters from Voldemort's side pointed their wands at the group to keep them away. Voldemort said, "Neville here is now going to demonstrate what happens to anyone foolish enough to continue to oppose me." He swished his wand, and flames erupted from the Sorting Hat, perched on Neville's head. Many in the crowd screamed, the loudest among them Hannah and Mrs. Longbottom. Draco found himself yelling, "No!" and had to clap a hand over his mouth, lest his voice be heard. Narcissa began looking up from the crowd, as though scanning the windows of the castle. And then, many things happened at the same moment. Calls and shouts rang out from the distant gates of the school, where the winged boars stood sentry. A giant stepped heavily around the side of the castle, calling, "Hagrid?" This almost had to be Hagrid's brother, Draco thought. From the Forbidden Forest a line of centaurs appeared, bows drawn, arrows arcing up into the sky to rain down on the heads of the Death Eaters. And Neville's arms and legs broke through the force of the body-bind curse. The flaming Sorting Hat fell from his head, and Neville caught it deftly in his left hand. Draco watched, holding his breath as Neville plunged his hand into the centre of the flames and drew back, clutching the hilt of the sword of Godric Gryffindor. Voldemort's attention was divided between Grop on one side of him, the approaching invaders on the other, and the angry centaurs behind him. Therefore, it was a complete surprise to him when Neville swung the sword upwards with both hands, slicing cleanly and neatly through the body of the snake, decapitating Nagini with so much force that the snake's head flew up, vaulting and tumbling through the air. It was done. The final Horcrux was gone. Draco found himself breathing very fast, as though there wasn't enough air in the room. Voldemort was mortal again. Screams of shock, disgust, triumph, fear, and jubilation filled the air. The giants that supported Voldemort, which had hung back before, now thundered towards Hagrid's brother. The newcomers were gaining ground, bringing a cacophony of battle cries with them. The ethereal cries of thestrals and the screeches of hippogriffs filled the air overhead. Then Hagrid's voice, heightened with fear, cut above everything. "Harry! Harry! Where's Harry?" Thank you for listening to this chapter of The Handkerchief by Great78.